Hello everybody, I'm joined here by Justin Amirkhani, Creative Director of Vagabond Dog, and we are going to talk a little bit about our upcoming game, Always Sometimes Monsters. Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
Alright, so first question, what is the game about, generally speaking?
That's probably the most confusing question. Always Sometimes Monsters is a game where you play 30 days in the life of a character going from the East Coast to the West Coast before the love of your life marries somebody else. It's just like, and then you just get set free in the world and you just do stuff and try and make your way to this goal. But along the way you face these ethical questions, find out, you know, what you're capable of morally, and just have a very unique experience. The story changes as you make choices through it, and everybody gets a really different sort of experience going through the game.
Right.
That's kind of the gist of it, I guess.
Right. What inspired you to make this game?
So I spent about a year hitchhiking and traveling on buses around America to visit video game developers and, you know, find out. When I started the trip, it was like to find out, you know, what made them tick and like what made certain game developers happy and make certain kind of games, where that passion came from and everything. And so influenced me a lot because I'm living on the, you know, the fringe of society and like just seeing a lot of, you know, first the game developers are passionate about, you know, what they're doing, and then encountering all sorts of people that you don't really normally get to see in everyday life, and learning about, you know, life in various different forms, and that sort of inspired, I guess, the game. And then when I came back, we started working on it.
Great, great. Did the game change in big ways from your first concept during production and everything?
Yeah, definitely. When we started out, when we built our prototype, there was one single protagonist. It was just this one guy chasing this one girl, and then as we started evolving, you know, we figured out what the game was, and it was that we wanted to make the game have as much variety as possible in the stories that you experience. And because that's the whole point of, like, we kept throwing choices in there to make it, you know, more varied. Everybody makes different choices. They have different answers to these questions. But then one of the big things we stumbled upon was the idea of adding diversity to the game. So somebody asked us if, you know, if it would be hard for us to make the character be a woman, if you wanted to play as a woman. And then I was like, well, I mean, yeah, we could just switch the sprite and then you could play as a woman, but that really wouldn't matter. And then the idea of like, oh, people will react to you differently in the game if you're a man or a woman, that's a huge difference. And that sort of really inspired me to then take it another step further and take a look at race, and then take a look at sexuality and see how these different elements, you know, if you provide that to the character, to the player, how these different elements can change the story and give everybody an even more unique experience playing through the game. And so that was probably the biggest change to the game, but that came like pretty early on. Like that was before we really started cooking on the content and everything. And so we were fortunately able to add, you know, these little references and calls and make the content cater to that sort of experience a little more along the way.
So there's going to be a high replayability. You can. It's almost infinite, you can say. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's not infinite. That's the one thing I struggle with this a lot, because I find the idea of like an infinite game fascinating. And there's a lot of games, right? There's only one way you can really make an infinite game, and that's relying on chaos. So you have a random generator that, like, you know, it randomly spits things out for you. But if you're having a narrative experience, you know, a story, you can't really do that, because like we don't really have like, I could write story chunks and pieces and have the computer spit those out for you, but even then there's a finite number of experiences that you can have.
I don't know what happened.
No problem.
Right, so
I can pick it up from where I was, but essentially what I was saying was that you run into a hard problem when you're making a game. You can only put so much into it, and so ASM has limits on the walls, but to the individual experiencing it, you're never really going to be able to see everything because you only have so much time to play through it all. And I mean, you'll share experiences with other people, and that's what I'm hoping people, are able to relate and compare. But yeah, it has a high replayability for sure. Even just to see what could have happened if you made different choices.
Yeah. How long is this story, more or less? Not in big numbers, but 3 hours. 5.
Yeah, it depends on the choices that you make.
So it can either be really long or really small.
It can go from I think the fastest you can beat the game is like 1.5 minutes.
Really?
And then the longest you can play is for infinite.
Whoa.
The concept is that like the more selfish you are, the more ruthless, the shorter it is. The more selfless you are, the more you give up, the longer it is. But most people tend to be around like 10 to 12 hours or so for the experience.
Right.
But it depends on who you are.
Yeah, that's impressive, really. What is the message of the game, if there is any? Is there?
Yeah, there is. It's very. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, there's something about the human experience. Like, there is no real separation between you and me and everybody watching and everybody talking, and everybody experiences the same highs and lows relative to their own personal experience. Life is this curve that we all just flow on, and you will hit those same highs and lows relative to your own experience at some point in time. And so nobody's story is therefore more or less valid than anybody else's, because within your own subjective experience, it's completely it is the story, right? You have only one story, and it's your story. So that's part of the message. The other part is like taking that same lack of absolutism to the ethical side. So there is no right or wrong. The game doesn't do Paragon, Renegade, good, bad. It doesn't believe in these things. You decide, right? You're the judge. You have your actions, and there are consequences for those actions in the game, but you decide whether your actions were justified and not justified. It's up to you to bring that to the table as the player, because we don't want to suppose a morality on you and say this is right and wrong. You have to decide for yourself.
It's more of a personal experience then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So that's the ethical side, and then ultimately there's just about like love and stuff like that, and what is love, and who do we love, and how do we fall in love, and what does it mean to be in love, and all those stupid questions.
So is there like a backstory to the relationship with your love, or?
Yeah. So the backstory with the romance, it plays itself out over these dream sequences. So they're almost flashbacks, but it's funny because the actions you take in the present, right, as you're playing, influence the things that happened in the past.
Oh.
So you write the story like as you write the past as you're playing through this experience in the story, and that defines how things happened along the way. But you experience everything from like, how you guys met, to your first kiss, to what life was like together, and ultimately your breakup, which is where the core of the game actually starts. You start off broken up. You had a contract to publish a book. You failed. Your life is just right at the bottom. You start off the day you're getting evicted. And life is terrible. And from there, it's about like, finding your way back to life and reconnecting with the happiness that you used to have.
Great. One last question. How would you recommend this game to someone that doesn't know anything about it?
If you like stories, if you like action, you're probably not going to like the game. It's a very slow game, a lot of reading, but if you like story, if you like narrative, if you like making choices, if you like games that take a look at games in their own way, like we've looked at games so much that like now we're trying to use these concepts that you're very comfortable with in games, and play with it and turn it on its head as much as we can. So if you like games that are in a sense about games, I guess it's good. And if you like drama, I guess it's probably another good one.
Great.
If you like exploring, you'll probably like it. I don't know.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you, man.
Remember, guys, Always Sometimes Monsters comes out the 21st of May.
Yep.
If I'm correct. On Steam and Humble Store, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good job, really.
Thank you.